In this training, winning while having a social life, we're going to show you how you can actually win while still being able to enjoy yourself. By winning, I mean get that transformation that we're after, get in incredible shape, while also still being able to go out and socialize with your friends, with your family, go to events, all those different type of things that you like to do. And we want to be able to find a balance and still enjoy life. That is the key at the end of the day. I want to dig into a couple of the problems that most people face when they're trying to actually have a social life while working towards their body composition goal or their performance maybe. And one of the biggest challenges that people face is self-sabotage. And self-sabotage is when you act against your own goals, even though you want the result. And you might be all in like Monday to Friday. A lot of people are good between those days in the week, but come the weekend, it's takeaways, drinks, it's the hangover munchies, it's zero activity, and then suddenly your progress gets wiped out. You didn't plan to overdo it, but you got caught up in the moment. Maybe it was down to peer pressure or just that discipline might have been lacking. There's so many different things that can cause us to fall off the wagon. Then there's the all or nothing mindset. You're either on track or completely off it. You label food as good or bad, and once you feel like you've messed up, you hit that dreaded fuck it button, I like to call it, and then we begin to spiral. And this way of thinking turns socializing into a setback instead of something that can be worked into your lifestyle. Another big one that I feel people struggle with is they're missing the root cause. And a lot of people think the problem is socializing itself when it's not. It's actually not having the skills or the systems to navigate the social occasions. If you don't build that into your routine, you're just avoiding the real issue. And that's what leads people to this yo-yo process where they're just up and down, in and out, all over the place with their progress. Another problem that we see is not knowing how to factor in different foods, different drinks into your calories. When you do go out, like you might feel clueless about what to order, what calories are actually in certain things, or how to estimate your portion sizes. And if you've never learned how to create a calorie buffer for yourself, understand how to fit in higher calorie meals, or make better educated choices, it's very easy then to go way over your calorie intake without realizing it. Lastly, then, another problem that I see is there's just no systems in place, right? There's no strategies for how to handle the nights out or the meals out. So instead of planning it, people just wing it, right? And that's when things begin to fall apart. Whether your goals is fat loss, building muscle, or just feeling better on a day-to-day basis, if you don't learn how to manage your social life within that, something will eventually give in. And our aim isn't to cut out the social life completely. It's more so to teach you how to manage it and then build it into your life. You can still get results and you can keep living your life and enjoying it at the same time. There's a few outcomes that we want to strive for. The first one being food freedom, right? And we want to enjoy our meals without guilt or restriction. No more like fear of missing out, that FOMO feeling that we get, right? You can still make progress and be present in social occasions. The second thing would be nutritional knowledge. Knowing what's actually in your food and the drinks that you're consuming, how to estimate it, how to factor it into your intake. This is what gives you confidence and control. The third thing then would be getting results without sacrificing your social life. Like looking, feeling and performing better without needing to isolate yourself or miss out on quality experiences. And finally, it's to lead by example. When you live this way consistently, people begin to notice. You become someone that others look up to, showing it's possible to actually stay in shape all year round while still enjoying yourself, while still being able to go through social occasions, having nights out, meals out, whatever it is. A few things that you do need to be aware of. What's important to understand is that everyone here, of course, will have different goals, right? And your goals will likely change over time. Some of you might be chasing fat loss, others might be looking towards building muscle, maybe performance is your goal, and then some other people just want health optimization. So let's break it down how socializing can actually impact each of these things, right? Firstly, we look at fat loss. If fat loss is your goal, social events can easily lead to overeating, which of course slows down your progress. We'll talk about using calorie buffers in a moment, but hitting your protein targets and staying consistent without needing to be perfect, it's about being smart with this and not being extreme in any way. Something that I need to be clear about is you have to be in a calorie deficit to lose fat. I think everyone knows that by now. If you're not losing weight, you're clearly not in a calorie deficit. Now, you can't follow some of the tips, then go way over your calories and expect results. Even if you're making better choices, fat loss won't happen if your overall intake is still too high. Enjoying a social life is possible, but progress depends on managing your calories. When we look at muscle building, even in a surplus, too much socializing or poor structure around your food and your drink, that can lead to unnecessary fat gain. It can lead to poor recovery, and it can kind of knock you off your track, and you can lose momentum. You still need to prioritize quality nutrition and protein if you want to grow without looking soft. Still want to have that visible muscle definition, not just be a bigger, softer version of yourself. When we look at performance goals, then whether it's training, for a sport, running, you're doing races, or whatever kind of sport you're into, poor nutrition, things like alcohol as well, and lack of sleep can really negatively affect your recovery, your strength, your energy, and your output. And we'll cover how to manage your socials without taking away from your performance. Then we look at human optimization, right, or health, and this is about energy, it's about food, it's about digestion, and just overall health in general. And the more you eat and drink low quality stuff, the worse you're going to feel. We're not saying cut fun out. What we're saying is we're looking at making smarter choices more often than not, so your body can actually feel good. So whatever your focus is, your current focus, socializing can either support it or it can stall it. And the goal is to build awareness, right, and learn how to navigate it with whatever phase that you're in. Principle number one is we need to be aware of the nutritional content in the foods that we're having when we're socializing. When we're socializing, it's so easy to switch off and forget about calories, especially if you're just not tracking or you just want to enjoy the moment, right? But if you're not aware of actually what's in food, things can add up very, very quickly. A few examples for you guys would be a small popcorn at the cinema. Even a small one can add up to 1,000 calories if you have that on your own, which is a lot of calories in one sitting, but it doesn't feel like that, right? Because it's so easy to consume. A garlic mayo dip that you might get with a pizza could add an extra 150 to 200 calories if you use the whole dip up. A restaurant meal could have an extra 400 to 500 calories coming just from the oils, the butters, the creams that are added to that meal. A coffee and a pastry, if we're going all out, let's say, and you're going for a frappuccino or something like that, and a croissant, guess what? They're going to amount to about 700 calories or more. Okay, and the frappuccino are probably doing the most damage there. So you don't need to avoid these things, but you do need to be aware of them if your goal is fat loss or health optimization or performance, as we said. The more awareness you build, the easier it becomes to make these smarter choices and plan ahead, so you're not constantly going way over it without actually realizing. When we look at awareness, just knowing what's in your food and your drink it's actually half the battle, right? Without awareness, it's easy to overeat without realizing. The same thing when it comes to having experience tracking your calories, right? Tracking will teach you what different foods are made of. So even when you stop tracking, you still have the knowledge to stay in control. That leads on to intuitive eating, right? So once you've built up that knowledge from the tracking of your macros and your calories, you can start to make better choices without logging everything. You can just do it by eye, and that's where the real freedom kicks in, because there's going to be times where you realistically can't track. Portion control is like a skill in itself. Like, you don't always need to change the food. Sometimes it's just the portions of the foods that you're having. So having less of something is often enough even to make progress again, or even stay on track. When we think about making better choices, like, small swaps really do add up. Like, grilled chicken over fried chicken makes a big difference for your, not just fat loss, but your digestion as well. Diet drinks over sugary ones is going to save you a ton of calories. Skipping the starter or dessert can often help a lot. These things are nothing major, right? But they do make a big difference across the week, the month, the year. So we have to accept that, look, we'll never actually be 100% accurate when we're tracking restaurant food. We can be close, we can guesstimate, but the chefs that are making the food, right, they're not measuring oil with a tablespoon or weighing out portions for you just to please you, right? Their goal is taste, right? They don't care about your macros, they don't care about your calories. So it's unrealistic to think that you will be able to track every gram perfectly, and that's fine. You're not expected to. What matters is you're doing your best and you're building awareness over time and you're understanding what's on a plate. As I said, we can guesstimate. Like, a lot of the big chain restaurants now are on things like MyFitnessPal, and they give an estimate of the calories, and they're close enough to probably what's there. If you're in a local spot, you can just pick a similar meal from somewhere like Nando's or Domino's or McDonald's. If you get something similar, let's say in another fast food place, it won't be exact, but it'll be close enough so you have an idea of the calories, and it helps you stay in control. And it's always better guessing than just nothing. Now, again, small swaps, like we said, can make a huge difference. Like, when you're choosing like chips, you can go for baked or roast potatoes instead. Choosing steamed and grilled over fried really, really helps. Spirits over beers and cocktails will save you a ton of calories. I'm not saying you always have to not have a beer. I like a beer every now and again, but if calorie saving is your goal and you're really, really trying to get through your fat loss, these things can help. Like diet drinks over and 0 calorie drinks really, really help, rather than having a full sugar Coke. Going for an Americano instead of a Frappuccino is going to save you a ton of calories. Or even, like, some people like flat whites, they're probably on the lower end of the scale as well. Burgers, if you're trying to save calories, you can remove one bun or you can remove both buns. If you're trying to save more with pizzas, you can go with the tin base and plain crust. It's going to save you a ton of calories. Buffets, the 1 plate rule, or make sure you're sticking prioritizing protein when you are at a buffet. When it's the cinema, bring your own no-calorie popcorn, or at the very least share a small one rather than having it all to yourself. Skipping starters and desserts, or just at least one of them. And there's one thing that makes a huge difference if you struggle with overeating, guys, as well, is slowing down your eating. Actually chew your food, break it down, give your body a chance, because otherwise you're giving your stomach so much more work to do if you haven't broken it down within your mouth yet. Okay, so chew your food, give your body time to register that it's full, or that it's getting to a level of fullness. Principle number 2 is we need to be proactive and create a calorie buffer. So executing a calorie buffer, it's very important, and it's going to be really helpful for you going forward. When you purposely eat a little less on some days to allow more flexibility for a higher calorie day or days, let's say, like a night out or a meal out, you have something planned. To do this properly, you need to plan ahead. So look at your week, or maybe even your month, and plug in any key social events you have coming up. Meals out, weddings, nights out, weekends away, whatever it is. Once they're in your calendar, you can start adjusting your calorie intake accordingly for them. Not every social event needs to be treated the same. You can label them, light, which would be, no alcohol, or maybe just the main course. You can label them moderate, which might be a few drinks and one indulgent meal. Or you can go heavy, where you're kind of like drinking and eating whatever you want, right? That way you know what you need to create for your calorie buffer. You know how much of a buffer you need. You're setting these realistic expectations. So how do you actually create this buffer, right? So let's say your calorie target is 2,400. Then you drop to 2,200 from Monday through to Friday or Saturday even, and you're saving yourself 1,000 to 1,200 calories across those 5 or 6 days. On Saturday or Sunday, in this case, you have a daily target of 2,400, but now you have an extra 1,000 that you've saved up, or 1,200 during the week, allowing you much more to play around, anywhere between 3,400 to 3,600, without going off track. So I'm sure you'll agree it's a lot of calories to play around with. As long as you don't go over the 3,400 limit, like, you're going to be fine, and you can create that calorie buffer very easily by choosing lower calorie, higher volume foods, like your veggies, filling up more with that in your plate, reducing your carbs and fats a bit more, slightly reducing your portions. Let's say you usually have 80 grams of oats, you might reduce it down to 60, swapping higher calorie foods for lighter alternatives, and reducing your meal frequency, so skipping breakfast or snacks if hunger is a bit low. And these things will really, really help. And it's important to understand that, like, only reduce your intake by no more than 20% per day. Going too aggressive with your calorie banking as well can backfire. That can lead to poor energy, bad sleep, and the cravings can just build up worse and worse. So it's also better to plan ahead. If you try and do it afterwards, it never really works out as well. Buffering works best when you go into the weekend prepared, not when you're kind of playing catch up the following week. Now, you can do it if you're very disciplined, but I do know people struggle more with trying to backtrack on the following week. Okay, a few things to consider is if you've struggled with binge eating, poor food relationships, or you're already on low calories, buffering might not be the best option for you. If you're deep in a fat loss phase or an aggressive cut, you need to tread carefully. You definitely don't want to be too aggressive with a buffer. For maintenance or muscle gain phases, you might not need to buffer too much or much at all, because you're already on higher calories. If you do it right, a buffer will give you freedom without the guilt, and it keeps your progress on track as well, which is what it's all about at the end of the day. What can you expect after a social occasion? Like, even if you have planned your calorie buffer, there are a few like short-term effects you might notice even after a big night out or a few heavy meals, right? You can still feel bloated even if you've done the buffer right. You can still have a bit lower energy. You can have a bit of a dip in performance if you're Sleep is off too. Temporary weight fluctuation is normal. If you had more carbs, your body's going to hold on to more water. Now, that doesn't mean anything's gone wrong. These are just normal and they're very short-lived. You'll feel back to normal within a few days of just getting back into your usual routine. So if alcohol is involved, keep in mind that it can have an effect on strength and recovery for up to 72 hours. So don't expect to be hitting PBs the next day or even 2 days after, right? So to support recovery, you want to prioritize hydration. Electrolytes can help a lot with this. Like take them when you get home after a night out, take them again in the morning. Hit your protein target that day and the day after. And if your goal is health optimization, focus on eating quality foods across the week to balance out the social occasions. Principle number 3 is focus on the occasion and not just the food. Now, while you're out socializing, okay, don't make food the main focus. You're there for the people that you're there with, right? The experience, to have the crack, not just what's going to be coming out on the plate, right? So be present, enjoy the conversations, the people that you're with, and you'll naturally find yourself eating and drinking more mindfully. Okay, you can still enjoy some food and drinks, of course. Just don't feel like you need to do the dog in it every time you go out. Food will always be there. You're not missing out if you choose to go a bit lighter. Not every social occasion needs to be a blowout. Some nights can be lighter. You could choose to have one course, no dessert or fewer drinks. It's about setting intentions ahead of time, planning ahead, and then sticking to it. That's where the discipline needs to come into play. And remember, there's always a better option you can choose on the menu. Okay, every restaurant has something that you can tweak or choose that better supports your goals. You just have to look for it, and follow the guideline in the Guide to Eating Out ebook that we have. You want to ditch this good versus bad mindset. That way of thinking, it just leads to guilt, you spiraling within your own mind and hitting that fuck up button. Principle 4 is to know your limits. One of the hardest parts of staying on track socially is actually going against what everyone else is doing. You might feel pressure to say yes to the dessert or to another round of drinks, to eating more than you intended, just to avoid being the odd one out or a bit of awkwardness. But here's the truth: nothing changes if nothing changes. If your actions don't align with your goals, your results won't either. Okay, sometimes you'll want to wine and dine and have a dessert, but you'll say no because you're in a fat loss phase. You're really focused in on chasing a specific goal, and that's discipline. And the reality is, not many people have discipline these days. So when they see you sticking to your standards, it can really make them feel uncomfortable. They might make comments or try to pull you into what they're doing, not because they don't like you saying no, but because it reminds them that they aren't saying no, that they don't have the discipline to say no. It's easier for them if you give in, because then they don't feel bad about it themselves for giving in. But you're not doing this to make others feel better. At the end of the day, you're doing this for yourself, to feel good in yourself, to hit your goals, to live the lifestyle that you want to live. The few people there in a couple of months' time that weren't saying no, they'll be asking you, how did you get in such great shape? What's your secret? Or they will think it's easy for you to be in good shape. That can often happen as well. But it's not easy, as you're aware. You just put in the work and therefore you reap the reward. So start small, say no with confidence. Trust me, it's one of the most powerful things you can do. Over time, it gets easier. You'll build that identity of someone who follows through on what they said they were going to do. This isn't about restriction, as I said, guys. It's just about having control and choosing to say no when you really want to say no, and saying yes when you want to say yes. It's about knowing where to enjoy yourself and when to pull back as well, and just bouncing back quickly if you do let your hair down and go all out, right? As I said, it's not about being perfect. We just want to, it's never about perfection. It's about just striving for progress, being consistent week after week. It starts by making decisions in advance, not in the moment. So when we look at the bigger picture then, guys, it is easier to get caught up in the smaller stuff. One meal out, one night out, one day off track. But we need to remember, we are what we do on an average basis, okay? If you zoom out, focus on the day-to-day habits, staying active, being mindful, making better choices more often, that's when you get these long-term results. That's when you're able to stay in shape all year round with ease. And just so you know, like, it's actually not that easy to gain body fat from one meal. To gain 1 pound of body fat, you'd actually need to eat 3,500 calories above your maintenance, not just eat a pizza or have a night out, okay, to gain 1 pound. What you're feeling after social occasions, like bloatedness, a bit puffy, water retention, poor digestion, it's not fat gain. As I said, it's just your body retaining more fluid. It will revert back very quickly. And the whole process, as I said, is meant to complement your life. It's not meant to complicate it. So think about it like climbing a mountain. Climber A goes all in, right? No breaks, no detours, gets to the top fast, but burns out, and then hates the journey and then falls back into their old ways and their old habits. Climber B takes breaks, enjoys the view on the way up, looks at the progress that they've made, shares the climb climb with others and still reaches the top and said, "Do you know what, that was great, that was very enjoyable, that was sustainable, I could do it again." Who's more likely to climb it again, right? Climber B all day. Climber A is not want to go near it. That's what we're building here, is a lifestyle that you can stick with. It won't be perfect, but it will move you forward in a consistent way that is sustainable. To summarize, guys, we want to be aware of our nutritional content of foods when we're socializing. We don't switch off completely. Small choices add up fast, right? So awareness means control. We want to be proactive and we want to create a calorie buffer for ourselves for any big nights out we've planned, and then enjoy your night out without guilt. The third thing is we want to focus on the occasion and not just the food. We want to be present with the people you're with. Food is part of the night, it's not the main event. Fourth thing is we need to know your limit. You don't need to say yes to everything. Discipline now leads to results later. And remember the bigger picture as well, guys. You know, one meal won't ruin your progress. It's what you do most of the time that matters. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this session. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me.